We come now to chapter 13 in our study on 1 Corinthians. This chapter brings us to the more excellent way that Paul was speaking about in the preceding chapter, his closing remarks. And this chapter, we could say, balances, as it were, the preceding and the succeeding chapters of this first epistle. Paul had spoke about the various gifts in the preceding chapter which God has placed in his church, and he will later, in the next chapter, speak to us about how we should behave in the church concerning the issue of speaking in tongues. The apostle emphasized that there was one thing which is more important than any demonstration of spiritual gifts or conditions. Hastings, he wrote on this subject, St. Paul gives us no definition of love. There are some things, and they are the simplest and the most elemental, that defy definition altogether. And there are times when definition is destructive. Whoever questioned the beauty of the sunset, but who can define it? The astronomer can give us the mathematics of it, and there doubtless is mathematics in the sunset, but there is no sunset glory in the mathematics. There is a chemistry of colors, but there is no wistful, healing light in that chemistry. Beauty defined is beauty destroyed. In this great hymn of love, there are no analysis, no abstractions, no speculations. Here is all the murmur and the color of life. We are not asked to study love as an abstraction. We are asked to walk with love, a kindly, kingly presence, to hear how love says the thing that must be said day by day, to see how love does the thing that must be done day by day. See how love endures the thing that must be endured day by day. To watch how love stoops low beneath its brother's burden and keeps that silence that is more full and availing than speech. Surely this is the best way to come at love's true meaning. To find out what life is, we watch what life does. So, it is not a definition, but a conception of love that the apostle aims at. It is true he speaks of it, as it were, in detail. He shows love to us in the performance of definite, concrete services indicative of its nature. But all the way through this lyric passage, the part exists for the whole. Every phrase, every word brings its gift of light, enlarging and enriching our conception of that great something that all the words and phrases together cannot finally express. The end of quote. A long quotation, but an interesting one. Verse 1, Paul begins, "Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, I am becoming as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal." Borrowing a comment from Hastings, he wrote, "It has been finely remarked that the apostle illustrates in his very first words the lesson he wishes to teach. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not love." An unloving spirit would have said, "though you speak." The instinctive courtesy of the apostle is inspired by love and shows how thoroughly he himself has learned his lesson. The simplest way in which we can enter into his thoughts is to make clear to ourselves what the gifts are, which are sometimes supposed to supersede love, but which really depend upon it for their value in the church. The end of quote. Verse 2, "Though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. So Paul made reference with this statement to 3 of the gifts that he had referred to and mentioned in the previous chapter: prophecy, knowledge, faith. And no gift operates independent of love in the fulfillment of the will of God. Paul said, I am nothing. Those are strong words of the apostle, and they inform us of the importance of love. Regardless of what we're capable of doing, if it's not motivated by love, it'll be of no value to God or no value to the church. Verse 3, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Now, the Greek word that Paul uses in this passage of love is agape. It's similar to the word used in John 3:16 in speaking of the love which the Lord had for his creation and gave his life for it. We've got many examples of those who, for religious purposes, willingly expose their bodies to tremendous pain, even to the point of death. Such, for instance, as the Muslims do when they volunteer to become human bombs and to kill up enemies, or at least they think of them enemies, and they do it all in the name of Allah. But all of this kind of sacrifice is in vain. The mere sacrifice of one's body, well, it doesn't assure them of the blessings of the Lord. Anything we do, if it is not done in love, is wasted efforts. It's to no avail. It's done in vain. Verse 4, charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Charity suffereth long. Now, this speaks of one that's slow to anger, that doesn't allow himself to get all worked up real easy. Just the opposite of those who, well, are very short fuse, and just about anything or everything will cause them to explode. It tells us and denotes for us the state of mind which can bear long, endure long, when it's oppressed, when it's provoked, and when one seeks to injure us some way. Is kind. This love is good nature that Paul is speaking about. That it's not harsh. It's not disrespectful toward the actions of others. Envieth not. The love of which Paul writes does not envy others the happiness which they enjoy. It delights in their welfare. It doesn't get upset when somebody else seems to have more or obtains more. Such as, well, the person who is promoted on his job ahead of you, maybe. The person who's motivated by love doesn't envy that person. Vaunteth not itself. The idea is that of boasting, of bragging, of vaunting, of exalting yourself. You know, this word, interestingly, the word never occurs anywhere else in the New Testament. Vaunteth. Puffed up. Now, this speaks of being blown up with pride. This kind of pride it'll blind our eyes to the realities of life. Verse 5, does not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. Now, the expression behave itself unseemly, Paul is telling us this is what love does or does not do. When we witness people of God acting contrary to what love is supposed to manifest, well, it's obvious that they're allowing themselves to be influenced by the wrong spirit. The love of which the apostle is speaking seeks that which is proper, or that which is becoming in the circumstances and the relations of life in which we are placed at times. Not easily provoked. The words of Clark that he wrote concerning not easily provoked. He said, is not provoked, is not irritated, is not made sour or bitter. How the word easily got into our translation, it is hard to say, but however it got in, it is utterly improper and has nothing to do with the original to countenance it. By the transcript from my old manuscript, which certainly contains the first translation ever made in English, we find that the word did not exist there. The conscientious translator rendering it thus, it is not stirred to wrath. The end of quote. Thinketh no evil? Well, would not our world be so much better off if we gave people the benefit of the doubt, instead of jumping to conclusions before we've heard about the entire incident or matter? Allow one to justify their actions or explain why they did what they did. That would really help, I think, in our relationships. Verse 6, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Now those that are motivated by love, they will not be found rejoicing because of the acts of evil or sin. When wrong is committed, there should never be a rejoicing from the child of God. Our rejoicing comes from when truth triumphs, such as what John hears coming from heaven in Revelation 19 over the judgment brought against the system of evil of the beast, the Antichrist, in the last days. Verse 7, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things, beareth all things. My. Let me share again from Clark. Adam Clark wrote, Bishop Pierce contends that it should be translated covereth all things, and produces several plausible reasons for this translation, the most forcible of which is that the common translation confounds it with endureth all things in the same verse. We well know that it is a grand and distinguishing property of love to cover and conceal the fault of another, and it is certainly better to consider the passage in this light than in that which our common version holds out. And this perfectly agrees with what St. Peter says of charity. 1 Peter 4:8, it shall cover the multitude of sins. But there is not sufficient evidence that the original will fully bear this sense, and perhaps it would be better to take it in the sense of contain, keep in, the end of quote. Now, being the first to tell the news about someone's fault or fall certainly doesn't become a Christian who manifests the love of which Paul is speaking here. Believeth all things. Barnes wrote, it cannot mean that the man who is under the influence of love is a man of universal credulity, that he makes no discrimination in regard to things to be believed, and is as prone to believe a falsehood as the truth, or that he is at no pains to inquire what is true and what is false, what is right and what is wrong. But it must mean that in regard to the conduct of others, there is a disposition to put the best construction on it, to believe that they may be actuated by good motives, and that they intend no injury, and that there is a willingness to suppose, as far as can be, that what is done consistently with friendship, good feeling, and virtue. Love produces this because it rejoices in the happiness and virtue of others. and will not believe the contrary except on irrefragable evidence. The end of quote. Paul said, hopeth all things. Well, pity the person who wants to turn out bad for somebody else and wants things to happen to them in a bad sense. This love hopes that everything and all will turn out well for others, regardless of who they are or what they are. They're not just sitting around waiting and hoping for the moment they fall, and so they can jump up and say, see, I told you that's what would happen. I told you so. Endureth all things. Well, I think Job could be a good example for us here, or maybe Joseph. But anyway, Paul is speaking here of one's attitude toward others. The child of God knows that the Lord will bring him out and bring him out with victory. He doesn't have to take matters into his own hands, in other words, when others mistreat him or speak ill of him. Verse 8, charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. Now, those things which God has bestowed upon his church, prophecies, tongues, knowledge, will one day have served its designated purpose and, well, no longer be needed, we could say. For some time, I thought of the question I would like to ask the Lord when I come into his presence tomorrow. Until, well, there are a lot of questions, a lot of things I don't fully understand. And I thought, I'm looking forward to the day when I can sit at his feet and ask him this question or that question. Until finally it dawned on me, this is never going to happen. I will not ask the Lord those difficult questions on that day because I'm going to be changed. I'm going to be changed into his glorious likeness on that tomorrow, according to 1 John 3:2. But until that day arrives, we're going to continue to need the gifts which God has placed in his church. These gifts are still prevalent, prominent, and important in the church today. We'll have to wait till we're perfect, and then when we're glorified, we'll have the answers to our questions that we have today. Verse 9, for we know in part, and we prophesy in part. So we are limited because we're human. We're in the flesh. We're limited in our understanding of our world, the things about us, although knowledge continues to increase dramatically with each passing, I started to say passing generation, but it seems like it's increasing more drastically with each passing year, if not each passing month. But there remains so much that we don't know, and so much we cannot know until that day when that which is perfect is come. That's what Paul said in verse 10. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. That word perfect, that's a powerful word and interesting. Now there are some that contend that Paul is here speaking about the fullness of the New Testament or revelation to the church concerning the will of God for the church. Well, the context doesn't support such a theory. Paul is not speaking about the completion of writings, but the completion of the journey of the church through this world. That condition of perfection, it hasn't arrived yet. I haven't met my first perfect man in person yet. And it will not until that day when we're going to experience what John spoke to us about, the verse that I referred to previously, 1 John 3:2. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. My mind, this day, That's the day for which we await with great anticipation. Mr. Burkitt, he wrote, "Oh, happy and vast difference between the Christian's future and present state." True, he now begins to know. He knows in part here, but verily what he here knows is little of what he should know, little of that he might know, little of that others know, little of that he desires to know, and little of that he shall know when he comes to heaven. Then all imperfections shall be done away when that which is perfect is come. The end of quote. Sounds good. Verse 11, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Now, the knowledge that we presently are privileged to possess is compared with the difference in the knowledge between a child and an adult. The things with which we wrestle today will vanish in that tomorrow. Verse 12, for now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. Borrowing again from Burkitt, he said, these adverbs, now and then, distinguish the twofold state of gracious souls and show what they are whilst confined to the body, and what they shall be when emancipated and freed from the body, that clog of mortality which now hangs upon them. The end of quote. Well, strain as we do, we will never be able to fully discern all that awaits the child of God in that wonderful and glorious tomorrow. While we have the Word of God to inform us of how we should conduct ourselves in regards to obtaining salvation, in regards to living right afterwards, the instructions pertain only to this life and to this world. But we're destined for greater things than what this world holds for the child of God. And that's exciting. No, even as also I am known. One commentator put it this way, even as also I am known, more literally, even as also I have been known. That is, known by God in the present state, where our knowledge of Him, though real and saving, is yet so faint and imperfect, that it may be better said that we are known of God than that we know Him. Galatians 4:9. The apostle plainly has in mind not the extent of our knowledge in the heavenly state, but rather its manner, as direct and clear. The end of quote. Now this statement has, I think, been misstated and misunderstood by several. Paul's not talking about whether we will be known in heaven by our loved ones or not. That's not what he's referring to. He is here speaking of our knowledge, our understanding of things. We are limited now. I don't care how smart, what kind of degrees one has, what kind of education one has. We are limited in our knowledge in this world. But when we take on His likeness, we shall know then as He knows us now. Verse 13, and now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three. But the greatest of these is charity. Mr. Clark wrote, love is properly the image of God in the soul, for God is love. By faith we receive from our Maker. By hope we expect a future and eternal good. But by love we resemble God. And by it alone are we qualified to enjoy heaven and be one with Him throughout eternity. Faith, says one, is the foundation of the Christian life and of good works. Hope rears the superstructure, but love finishes, completes, and crowns it in a blessed eternity. Faith and hope respect ourselves alone. Love takes in both God and man. Faith helps and hope sustains us, but love to God and man makes us obedient and useful. This one consideration is sufficient to show that love is greater than either faith or hope. The end of quote. And then another commentator. Let me quote another comment here. The conclusion, as if the apostle should say, such therefore will be our condition then. But now we have three things, and they remain sure if we are Christ, without which true religion cannot consist. That is, faith, hope, and charity. And among these, charity is the chiefest, because it ceases not in the life to come as the rest do, but is perfected and accomplished. Foreseeing that faith and hope tend to things which are promised and are to come when we have presently gotten them. To what purpose would we have faith and hope? But yet, there at length, we will truly and perfectly love God, both God and one another. I like that. The end of quote. Well, faith will save us. Faith will take us all the way home, day by day, step by step, incident by incident, and problem by problem. Hope buoys us up when we would otherwise sink into the morass of frustrations which life hands to us from time to time. The writer of Hebrews 6:19 tells us that hope is as an anchor of the soul, that's steadfast, it's sure. But the time will come, O blessed day, when the eternally secure, we will be eternally secure, we will be eternally freed from the troubles, from the frustrations, from the battles and conflicts of life. At that time, we will no longer be walking by faith. We will no longer be hoping for a brighter day. But love will always fill our heart. Love will never, never fade. I think in relation to this verse and this statement, I'm reminded of David in the Psalms 145, when he tells us he will praise the Lord forever and ever. Love is eternal. Our praises to God won't cease with our death, nor will it cease with the rapture. No, praise to God will continue forever and ever. Thank you for sharing with us in our comments and study of chapter 13. Let's go forth and manifest love.